Reddit, at what moment in your life did you stop, chuckle, and think to yourself, I'm in danger? A homeless girl grabbed me from a bar and said she needed an ambulance because her friend had OD'd. I followed her and started phoning one. She led me into an abandoned building. All that was going through my mind was someone needs help when she led me to some stairs and said we need to go up them. My brain finally kicked in and realized it could easily be a trap. Even if it wasn't, I was about to walk into a crack den and was far enough into the building where escape wasn't easy. Luckily my friend had followed us and appeared, so I phoned the ambulance and we left. I leaned over a candle and set my shirt on fire. I thought it was really interesting and turned to my friends saying, hey, look everyone, my shirt's on fire. Fortunately one of them had more presence of mind than I did and put it out. Look at me, I am the candle now. When a car jumped the median and was barreling right towards me doing well over 70. Luckily horsepower saved me from death. My first instinct was to floor it, at least have them hit the rear door panels instead of the driver's side door. I was only one in the car. When I was 7 I was playfully pushing a sheep and he pushed forward. Next thing I know I am against a wall. Sheep head on my chest and 5 seconds later I realize he is too strong for me. I literally thought I was going to die right there. This is my favorite. There was this time on a school bus, we had a new driver. The area is pretty hilly, and in this route, had this steep 50 feet drop off where the bus turned around with a 3-point turn. But the bus driver kept backing up. Closer and closer. We almost went off the cliff. I'm sure that if we measured, it was within a foot. I started looking at exits. How fast I could run to the front. Or the side exit. Man, we were all screaming in terror. Good times. The bus was hanging over the cliff and the wheels of the bus were close to the edge. Man, most bus drivers I've seen can put their fattest buses anywhere they want with astonishing accuracy. I took an out of bounds ski trail that looked fun by myself because intelligence is my strong suit. Came upon a tall cliff with a flat landing that I knew I couldn't make on skis, but I had come too far to hike back to the main path. Took my skis off, tossed them over and climbed down. Hurt my legs, but nothing serious. Continued on. Several minutes later came upon a sign pointing towards a 20-kilometer bike trail ending God knows where. It was around that time I realized I could end up lost in the backcountry of a ski resort with no cell reception. Decided to hike in the opposite direction the sign was pointing since it was uphill and seemed more likely to take me back to the main trail. After several whispered swears and a good half hour of hiking uphill and across a sketchy looking wooden bridge, through deep snow in ski boots holding my skis, I arrived at a populated ski run. I now make sure to have someone with me for all backcountry related adventures. That way if I die, I can bring them down with me. I was doing aid work in Croatia in the late 90s, only a few years after the war had ended. Our group was staying in a small village about an hour outside Zagreb which had been caught up in the conflict. Lots of shelled houses, mines in the countryside. Even the main bridge had been blown up, so residents had used an army makeshift bridge if they wanted to cross the river. We'd made friends with the locals and they took us down to the river where we had a fun time swimming and mucking about. I totally underestimated the river current and my ability to swim. So I start trying to cross the river and the current just picks me up, whoosh, and suddenly I'm on my ass, trying to swim against it. No deal. When I realized this I started trying to get footing, but I'm being swept downstream and my feet are literally hitting rocks. No grip at all. It seemed like forever, but it was probably about 5-10 seconds. I hit a shallow calm patch of the river where I could stand up. When the guys came over they were telling me it was no big deal, but had I been swept a little bit further downstream I would have hit a heavily mined area and probably been blown to bits. I metaphorically crap myself. That's the closest I've come to losing my life. Really crap me up. I went rock climbing in Croatia. The guidebook had warnings about minefields. Freaked me out a little that there were still active mines about. I worked as an animator in a hotel. During the season the mini club, daycare, is filled with kids, but post season there is not even one kid in the hotel. So post season one older lady and one middle-aged guy entered the empty daycare. The lady quickly explained to me that this guy is her mentally disabled son who is mentally around 3-4 years old. He saw the daycare and really wanted to play there. Usually I wouldn't accept, but there were no kids around, so I was actually happy that I'll be occupied for a while. He was really endearing and we often watched Mickey Mouse DVDs since he was a big fan. After a few days of me hanging out with him, his mother came to pick him up and asking me how was he. I replied that he was nice as always. To which he replied good, because he can get very violent and aggressive sometimes. It sent chills down my spine realizing that I was lucky, but that also he'll be coming to the mini club for the rest of their vacation. So there I was, day after day playing with this dude big as twice as me, completely alone, doing everything he wanted and being more than careful just that he doesn't get mad. I think it's real crappy of his mom not to have given you a heads up. I did some volunteer work with mentally disabled people for school. Wasn't told that one guy was mean till after he'd yanked my 16-year-old hair, not letting go till someone came to help me. I would have definitely appreciated being told beforehand. Me and my good friend Felix, both German, were traveling with an interrail ticket through Europe. In Serbia we were on a train which was going really slow and stopping at every really little town village. For some reason the train got shorter and shorter every other station because they were uncoupling a wagon here and there. So everyone moved to the first two wagons because they were most likely to arrive at the final destination. Me and Felix have already been in the first wagon in a closed cabin where there's a bench on the left and the right. We were both sitting left having a cigarette when suddenly things went intense. 3 obviously drunken men came in that cabin. At first they only asked for a cigarette, which we gave them. But after a few minutes they started discussing more and more intense. I could feel that they were talking about us. So I asked Felix, whose father is Serbian, he would understand them. He was pretty serious at that moment and told me that 2 of them wanted to rob us now and 1 wanted to wait until after the train ride. Felix gave me continuous updates about what they were talking. They were guessing how much money we might have and still discussing when to do the robbery. Their discussion heated up at one point and then stopped completely. I was wondering what happened and then suddenly it went all black. We were in a freaking tunnel. I was totally flexed and expected to get the crap beaten out of me. They were only talking like 3 sentences. I asked Felix, are they gonna do it now? He said, I'm not sure. After what felt like 10 but probably was 2 minutes, the light came back and I was sitting there like freaking Jackie Chan on my bench, prepared to fight back in the dark. They knew now that we kind of knew. They decided to follow us at our destination, so we could kind of chill during the ride. At our destination we just sprinted into the next taxi and told him to go to the next city as fast as possible. Felix was freaking with you and they were actually arguing about which was the best Star Wars movie of all time, TFA or Last Jedi. When I was in school and did my psych rotation, the first thing we were told was never to split up from our partner, so just in case of a dangerous situation with a patient, we would have a second person there to help. I went to do an assessment on a patient. He seemed perfectly normal, and my partner judged that now would be a good time to use the restroom. The patient and I are having a pleasant as can be conversation. He asks me to look at his drawings which he hung up proudly on the wall. I oblige. I like art as much as the next gal. I look. They are plenty nice. And then I turn around and find that the second thing we were told never to do, which is to let a patient get between us and the doorway, has happened. And he was not seeming so friendly anymore, which is when I thought to myself, well done it, I'm in a pickle now. This man is telling me how he has to get out of here. I have to help him. And all of I don't even hear what at this point because I'm realizing how potentially fricked I am. But then I realized that I had also done the third thing which we were told never to do, which was to keep our cell phones on us on the floor. I was just hoping at this point that I could keep this guy talking a little while I call my preceptor to save my dumb butt. My friend was at the same clinical site the following semester and the preceptor used that as a cautionary tale to emphasize the first 2 rules and get rid of the third one. At my best friend's going away party, drunker than I've ever been before or since, barely able to stand, when the bros collectively decided to pick me up and throw me in the pool. All I could do was grab a nearby screen door with one white-knuckled hand. Host is a big, burly musclehead who'd just made sergeant. Stopped them and told them they were idiots. I was too drunk to swim. Then I blacked out. Good thing someone had a good sense of mind. I swam from a beach out to a buoy, not even that far, maybe 200 meters from the beach. I am a strong swimmer, so thought I'd manage it easily. Something about the cold water and current IDK, I was really struggling coming back even with trying to swim horizontal to the beach etc. Went all lightheaded and felt really tired. Then just started thinking that this was it, I was going to drown and how stupid it was of me. Floated there for a bit, laughed to myself like a maniac about how stupid I was dying like this. Eventually snapped out of it and started swimming again. Ended up crawling back onto the beach. My partner asked how the sea was and I just croaked fine. I had a similar experience getting caught in a riptide. Took me and my buddy about 45 minutes to get back to shore. When we finally reached the beach we were about a mile down from where we went in. Scary crap. We were on a patrol in Afghanistan in 2008 when we came under heavy fire. Our fire team took cover behind a low loose stone mud wall, unable to return any effective suppressing fire. The wall was slowly getting lower and smaller as it was peppered by small arms fire. We knew that air support was coming but it felt like we were in some crappy Indiana Jones scene. In those situations, it's the humor that stops you from crapping yourself. I remember the first time I got mortared. I came running out of the tent nearly crapping myself only to find everyone else standing around smoking and laughing. It was so surreal. Me and my friend were scaling a cliff. He wanted to go around which would take about an hour. I said we could climb it. Fast forward 10 minutes and I'm hanging off a cliff 30 feet tall and hanging on to dear life with 2 hands. I found the situation quite funny. I was so confident in my ability to climb it, and I lost my footing just as I got to the top. I was holding on to the rock for what felt like forever, most likely less than 2 minutes, until he managed to climb up and pull my butt up there. God, I've been in the same position a few times because my brother thought the fastest way to the top was just to climb it. Strangely enough, since we started actually rock climbing, we don't do that anymore. One night when I was in active addiction I was drinking heavily and also taking a hefty dose of oxycodone. I felt my heart slow down to a crawl and I was having a lot of trouble breathing. Very easily could have died there, but I found it partly comedic in the moment. Don't do drugs, kids. I hope you have a shrine for your liver and kidneys because they saved your butt big time. Was on a school trip to Austria, skiing. Guy who didn't like me and repeatedly picked on me came into my room with all his mates and pushed me to a window. I thought it was just a joke until he put a knife to my throat. I instantly stopped laughing. He stared at me for a good 30 seconds and walked out of my room, which didn't have a lock on the door. Didn't sleep that night. What the frick? It was 3 years ago I believe when I was still in active service in Switzerland, in part of a tank crew. That day I was the designated loader for the cannon. We were doing live fire exercises and as we fired, one of the gas extractor seals blew up. What this is basically is a circular rubber ring around the gas tube of the cannon. If you look up a Leopard A2 tank, it's the thick tube at the base of the cannon that acts as a seal to prevent smoke backlash into the crew compartment and instead vents it outside. This entailed the sealed crew compartment to fill up with smoke and the acrid smell of cordite and essentially blind us all. So here I am, a 25 kg high-X shell in my arms that you don't want to drop on the floor, blinded and winded by smoke, thinking well, this is how I die apparently. Managed to fumble around, slot the shell back into the carry tray as well as engage the coax machine gun fan. It's mounted under the machine gun ejection port and pulls the smoke outwards when turned on, and open the top hatch to let it cycle out. Fun times. It was a high-X shell, not an AP. The AP shells are 20 kilograms. Intense story. Was watching Archer on my laptop in college, had my headphones on and in the episode there was an alarm going off. After about 3 episodes I finally realized, hey wait, why can I still hear the alarm? I'll look up and just see the end of the corridor I was in completely engulfed in fire and it was coming at me fast. Best part was like 40 people just walked by me after the alarm started and let me sit there. Nobody even bothered to warn me. That's so fricked up. I can't believe nobody warned you. My ex and I broke up after 5 years together. Stupid me got more drunk than I've ever been. drove to the spot where I proposed to her, rock cliff thing overhanging a reservoir, and made a campfire. It was the middle of the winter and I was sitting there getting more and more drunk and certain I was going to kill myself. I brought my shotgun fully intent on using it. Well, I stupidly looked over the cliff and drunkenly fell into the freezing winter water while it was pitch black outside. Somehow, I got out and got back to the fire and quickly realized, oh yeah, it's the winter and I'm soaking wet. This is how people freeze to death. So I made the walk back to my truck, stripped down, blasted the heater and got more drunk until I passed out. I woke up the next morning naked and feeling like an idiot. I've heard a lot of stories of people getting drunk in the woods during the winter and freezing to death, which made me realize how close to dying I was. It was weird because I wanted to kill myself for weeks and weeks, but I guess I didn't want to go out that way. I don't know. Those were dark times, but I'm glad it happened. I'm picturing you grumbling, crawling out of the lake through the woods back to your truck. Damn it, nature, if anyone kills me it's going to me, not you. Glad you're okay though. Friend's stag party ended with us camping out in the desert. I woke up to mooing and a cow with two much smaller baby cows near our campsite. Having had interaction with cows before, I thought I could just walk up and start petting. As I'm walking towards the cows, I realize a few things. 1. We aren't near a farm or anything. These are likely some wild cows whose ancestors escaped domestication a while ago. And more importantly, 2. Cows, even female cows, have horns. As soon as I was maybe 30-40 feet from the cows, she lowered her head at me like a bulldozer right before they charge. I'm sure her motherly instinct was kicking in or something. I just turned around and laughed at how stupid I was just about to be, thinking I could walk up to a wild horned animal and just pet it. As soon as I backed off, she and the little baby cows just wandered off and continued eating whatever they could find in the desert. When I was 16, I severely misinterpreted how long a hiking trail was. I discovered it a couple hours before sunset. I had never hiked it before, so I glanced at the map at the trailhead before setting off. It was essentially a loop with a slash through it, so I wasn't too worried about getting lost. I hiked it for an hour or so. I reached what I thought was the halfway point and sat for a while. When I got up, I decided to hike the rest of the loop instead of going back the way I came. Bad idea. The sun was almost down at this point and I had to start using my phone as a flashlight. Then I realized that I'm at 15%. At that point the reality set in that I was a 16-year-old girl alone in the woods. No one knew where I was, and I'm about to lose my only light source. As I continue hiking the loop, I start to realize that it's much longer than I initially thought. I started to get frantic and ended up turning around. At this point my phone dies and I start thinking to myself, if something happens to me here they won't find me for days. The rest of the story is essentially just me being terrified in the woods, but I did eventually make it back to my car unscathed. Moral of the story: don't be a freaking idiot and read the trail maps thoroughly if you're gonna go hiking right before sunset. Also charge your dang phone. Hunted wild boar, razorbacks, in Australia. Since I was a teenager, 14, they wouldn't give me a rifle. They set a line of the teenagers up with long poles and what looked like metal trash can lids to bang and make noise in a line abreast formation. We stomp forward, pigs run the other way toward the hunters with the rifles. In theory, occasionally, a male, the ones with the horns, will have enough testosterone stored in their sacks to charge at us. That's when we're supposed to take the pole and push them away. Yee. 14-year-old dumbass me dressed in a leather apron is gonna push this 400 pounds off pork monster off me with a stick. God's I was 14 then. On a road trip going through a town at about midnight, some car behind us beeped us because we didn't take off the millisecond the lights turned green, so we flipped them off. Bad idea. 2 M-heads in that car. One on the passenger side window hangs out the window screaming profanities at us. We stop at the next red light and he jumps out of his car and starts ambling towards ours. My mate is driving and starts reversing his car so we can drive away. Turns out no teeth M-head had a freaking metal pole concealed against his leg. He gets one heavy hit against the car before my friend steers away and drive off. They followed us for a bit until they lost interest. At 17 I decided to follow my boyfriend to a city I've never been to. I'm from a fairly small town and this was the biggest city I had ever been to. We're bumming around and he tells me he's met this guy who saw us and invited us to smoke some herb with him. I'm nervous but boyfriend says he's cool and since young me is an idiot I say sure and follow him. Buddy says he has to pick some up so we walk to his car and I get in back. We go to a park full of junkies and he's flashing a wad of cash at us and talking about how great this herb is blah blah. He says he's sketchy about smoking in his car so we're going to his place. Alarm bells are going off but again, boyfriend seems calm so I keep my mouth shut and try to pay attention to where we're going and how to get back downtown. Buddy's phone rings and he tells whoever that he's bringing some friends over, a guy and a young girl so now I'm panicking. Talking real fast about friends that are expecting us back and how we're traveling with these great people and just trying really hard to not look like a drifter who'll going missing without anybody noticing. We get to this building and go into his apartment and there's a couch and it's covered in plastic. He puts on some cheap bargain bin pee and tries to offer me a glass of beer he brought from the kitchen. I'm an idiot but not that dumb so I refuse. He keeps trying to separate boyfriend and I, offering to pay for some booze if boyfriend walks to the store etc. Eventually leaves the room for a spilled second and boyfriend decides it's time to steal his herb. Why? Buddy comes back and notices immediately. Starts to threaten us. He's got a bat. He's making obscene comments etc. I just completely break down and start bawling. I'm not great in a crisis. I'm sobbing. I'm telling him I want to leave. I want to see my mom. I don't want to frick him. Why can't we just leave blah blah. He gets kind of flustered and the situation awkwardly calms down. We leave. Boyfriend and I have our first epic meltdown fight in a strange city. Please tell me he's no longer your boyfriend. I was rollerblading and bombed this hill. It was a maybe 60-yard path with a button hook ending. I didn't notice that at the end of the button hook were two large boulders, maybe 4 feet high and just as wide with sharp edges. Got to about 30 miles per hour before I realized there was no way I was stopping. I remember chuckling and saying, this might hurt. Made a game time decision before I picked up any more speed and threw myself on the side of the path. Ended up rolling well past the boulders maybe another 20 yards or so. Luckily it was the dead of night and the hill was grassy and well maintained. Also the dew helped a lot. Honestly felt like a slip and slide. I remember feeling as though I teleported. 1 second I was on my skates, the next I was laying on my back at the bottom of a hill. Patted myself down and I was totally fine. Wet, but fine. Went to an Amon Amarth concert wasted, fell in the mosh pit, and nobody helped me up. I was essentially Mufasa in the wildebeest pit for the entire duration of that song. Nobody stopped. The pit just kept going on around me. I've been to many concerts and fests and this is the only time I've ever experienced anything like this. The pit is always really friendly. I believe it's because I wasn't in the main pit but rather a second pit that broke out near the back of the crowd. That's super unlike every pit I've been in before. Someone goes down and everyone around them tries to pull them up ASAP. That sucks, but glad you're still around. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.